The full link to buy this is in the description of this video. So we're now on lesson 5 and we're going to look at user inputs. This is where we're going to look at taking inputs from the users, so typing onto the keyboard and making the LED do certain things. So we're going to be using just the simple LED electronic circuit, ignore the push button. And we're going to be introducing the concepts of variables and user inputs. Because there's quite a lot of code in this video, I'm just going to quickly demonstrate to you what we're actually going to do. So in this example, we're going to run our fifth piece of code, and it's going to ask us for a user input. We're going to say LED 1, which is our red LED. We're going to say for it to blink 3 times, and the LED will blink 3 times. So we've entered things into the computer system, and we've seen a result. So this is using the combination of variables to store our input and if statements to make choices on what we're doing, whether or not we're choosing option 1 for red LEDs or option 2 for blue LEDs. So this is the code in its entirety, but for the time being we're just going to focus on this one piece here, and let's just take this and break this down a little bit further and understand what's going on. Above we have the normal sort of declaration, setting up the Python interpreter, importing all the different modules that we're using, setting up the GPIO config to allow the electronics to actually work. Okay, so here's just a subsection of what we're looking at. So in this snippet of code we're going to introduce the concept of variables. Variables are nothing more but reserved memory locations to store value. This means that when you create a variable, you reserve some space in memory. So this is the 512 megabytes of RAM you have on the Raspberry Pi, and we're going to allocate some of that 512 megabytes of RAM, and we're going to store a number, the number 0 in it. And when we store the number 0, we call it an integer. Letters and numbers together would be classified as a string, but numbers are called integers. The two variables we have here are LED choice and count, and the variables that are in both of these are the number 0. So there are our two choices. What happens is we've set our two variables up with the number 0 in, then we're going to send the operating system command clear to wipe the screen, and then we're going to print to the screen which LED would you like to blink, and then the options 1 for red and 2 for blue. So we're presenting our user to type that in. And then we have the option here, we say LED choice equals the input, and then it will print choose your option, which is what will be printed to screen. Input is the command that actually reads in what is typed into the command line, and then when a user presses enter, that information will be entered into LED choice. And this is what it looks like in the real world. So it prints to screen these two options here. So it prints this to screen and these two options, and it says choose your option. You would type 2 and then press enter, and then the value of LED choice, instead of being 0, would become 2. So in this slide we're introducing the concepts of if statements, and we have our first example here, which says if the variable LED choice equals 1, then we'll enter into this section of code. Otherwise it will jump over this and come down to here. If LED choice equals 2, and it will run this piece of code. So let's have a look and pretend that we've just selected 1. If the user chooses 1, then it will come down to this next step. Notice there's a white space indentation, and everything at this level will be run through until this while statement here. So it says option 1 was chosen, it enters into this line of code, it will clear the screen, it will print to the screen, you have picked red LED. It will then have our second variable, which is count, and we're going to enter into count the following, which is another input, which it says how many times would you like the LED to blink. So if we could type, for example, 3, hit enter, and then count, instead of being 0, would then equal 3. And then what happens is we enter into a while loop. And it says count, which we know is now 3, if count is greater than 0, do the following. Well, count is greater than 0 because it's 3, so 3 is greater than 0. So it goes into this section of code, and what we can see here is it turns GPIO 27 to a high state, sleeps for a second, turns GPIO low, so it turns the LED on, waits, turns the LED off, waits, and then it says count, so our variable, which is 3, equals count minus 1. So that means 3 minus 1 equals 2. And then it goes back up to the top for our while loop and goes through the while statement again. While count, which is 2, is greater than 0, and it goes through this again, and it will continue to do this, minus 1, so 2 minus 1 equals 1, comes to the top, is 1 greater than 0, yes. As it comes down here, once it's finally gone through it, where it equals 0, it'll say while count 0 is greater than 0, well it's not, therefore it's equal, therefore it drops out the code, and that's basically what will happen there. So once more, we're just going to see this in action. We select our script 5_user_input_blink.py, or just 5 tab to make things easier. Which LED would you like to blink? We choose option 1, which gets stored into our variable. We then choose option 3 for how many times would you like the LED to blink, and that gets stored into our count variable. And that's basically it. It blinked 3 times, and if we choose option 2, that gets stored into the LED choice, and then we choose the second if statement, and again 3 more times, and we can blink our LEDs. There we go. If you're interested in programming, I would recommend that you go over to the Code Academy website and follow their Python track, and there's many more if statements and while statements examples in their fantastic interactive website, and I think this is a fantastic complementary website to these videos, and they can teach you far more than I can do in these 10-minute videos. So if you want to keep watching these videos, like me on Facebook,